According to our carefully calibrated calendars, spring begins on March 19th, 20th, or 21st each year. The birds don't believe a word of it. By mid-January here in Missouri, the male cardinals are tuning up their trumpets, chasing each other around the yard, taking turns knocking each other off of feeders, and generally acting like teenage boys overcome by testosterone. Trouble with watching their many spats is that they're over while we're still thinking, ready, set. So I'll show you their run-ins in slow-mo. Male birds don't have the Y chromosome that causes so much strutting and havoc among human males, but they have the avian equivalent. It's labeled with a different letter, but the effect is the same. Males who fed peacefully next to each other in the fall start getting testy in January. Of course, the males can get kind of prickly at a feeder even in October, but by late winter they're more than prickly. They're pugnacious. Oh, sure, once in a while they tolerate one another on this tray. Occasionally. Especially during severe cold, because then they're too busy eating enough to survive to be bothering anybody else. But in more moderate weather, the males generally think two's a crowd. And how tolerant they are depends on how crowded they are. On the ground, there's more space, so they're less prickly, but still far from saintly. In this confined space, though, full of the black oil sunflower seeds they love so much, the quarrelsome quotient jumps by a factor of 10. When a second male arrives, you'd think he just came home and found a burglar in his house. Good thing he doesn't own a handgun. And on this even smaller tube feeder, these wired-up wankers do all but shoot sparks, even going after the smaller birds, something they don't usually do. These flocking birds now, they don't act like that. Even though the grackles are twice as big as cardinals, 5 or 6 of them will share the small space. They relieve their aggressive tendencies with puffed-up posturing instead of attacks, with the occasional dust-up, of course. But a male cardinal has to go all macho on everybody, leaning forward with his crest flattened. It's not an offer to shake hands and make nice, and everyone knows it. So, well before we call it spring, any cardinal sitting on a feeder watches constantly, not just for hawks, but for its own species. This female can keep watch behind herself almost without turning her head. See how her eyes sit on the side of her face? If you can see those eyes from this angle, she can see you. We're directly behind her, and yet she barely has to turn her head to see us. Birds that are preyed upon need those side-placed eyes to spot sneak attacks from the rear. Predators, on the other hand, mostly unconcerned about such attacks, have the forward-facing eyes that provide the binocular vision a hunter needs. So owls, hawks, cats, humans have to swivel their heads more than 90 degrees to check out the rear. But songbird eyes are like built-in rear-view mirrors. Even turning his head just this much is enough to show him 360 degrees. So he's going to be aware when there's another male cardinal incoming, even if the other bird is coming from overhead or beneath. Sometimes he might put up a fight if he has time to face his attacker, but he's more likely to skedaddle lest he get knocked around in a flurry of the new arrival's wings. Think feathered electric mixer. At a feeder, there's no alpha male cardinal trying to hold off all comers. It's more like everybody gets a turn. A male that shoos another one off the perch knows that his own turn to get toppled off the merry-go-round is coming. Bird karma. More often than not, new arrivals deliberately land close so as to send the settled bird flurrying away. And if the intruder comes upward from beneath, the bird already sitting doesn't stand a chance. These little street fighters don't like to give opponents room to get any momentum behind a counterpunch, which is what can happen if the second male politely lands on the other side of the tray. These hormone-hyped males are almost as ornery to the females as they are to other males, which, at the beginning of breeding season, defies logic. Isn't all this brouhaha supposed to be about attracting a mate? Funny way to go about it. Stomping on your dance partner's toes doesn't endear you to her. But there's a reason that males can afford to be cranky with the opposite sex, and that is that most cardinals already have a mate by the middle of January. Either the same mate as last year, or one chosen during winter flocking. So, no need to treat the other females with deference. In fact, this guy's body language says, if you're still there, lady, after I grab this seed, you're history. I'd like to know if this male is taking umbrage because that was his mate that just got booted away. Female cardinals, like the females of most animal species, don't inherit those prickly chromosomes. Even so, once in a while, one female will attack another one. This one goes after her target with a lot of conviction. But you don't see females bear down on males like that. The women folk know enough to keep out the way when the males are in one of their moods. I mean, what the hey? The moods are only going to last till, what, mid-July?